Next up, Mayor, is Adrienne Bilal. Ms. Bilal, you have the floor.
Good evening, Adrienne Bilal, 266 South Pearl Street. I just want to piggyback on what Council Ballard said in reference to the public putting input in before the engineers go forth with their design. For the simple fact that when Councilman Zivridge posed the question and he referred back to the Marine Park process, which I thought was a very healthy process. People were brought in, we gave all of them all our ideas. Of course, everyone didn't get what they wanted, but it gave a foundation to what the architects, what the people wanted. So therefore, we didn't have to go back and forth. And what they did at that time is they gave us 3 designs, which were voted on by the people who participated in that putting forth that that project, which never materialized. But my other thought is, since the Marine Park, and I came in late, so it may have already been said, is the parking lot part of the initial plan that was put together for Marine Park when we did that program back in the day?
Yes.
Ed helped me with this. It was?
Relocating the parking lot is part of that plan.
Okay, thank you. But I really do think, because what Councilwoman Kate was referring to with the redevelopment, that was not a healthy process. And I think people were very stressed out. There were things that were said. There were places that they were putting the building or the ideas they came up. And I think people really weren't concentrating on the actual building. Now, as a senior myself, my question too was, are they thinking about security? Are they thinking about cameras? Are they thinking about, putting a vestibule where before people come in the building, is there going to be any kind of security where they can't come directly into the building unless they're buzzed in? These little things like that. It's not about the construction of the building so much. It's about what is going to be in the building. And basically, when people participate in something that's going to be theirs, they take ownership of it and they feel proud of what the results are. So I really do think that we should rethink that process. Bring the seniors in, invite them in, ask them what they would like to see there, and then they will have a foundation of how to put the building together. And like I said, everybody's not going to be happy, but at least they can't say that when they walk in there, oh, we didn't want this, we didn't need this, or whatever. That's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, please.
Next up, Mayor, is Mary Beth Maida.
Good evening. Hi, thank you. Mary Beth Maida, 84 Branch Avenue. I just wanted to echo what Adrienne said and to support what Michael had said and to take issue with what Kate had said. I understand why she's defensive. I mean, I get the whole idea that, this was not an issue that was well handled. And we have 4 people on council who were very actively involved in the bad handling of the situation. But you can't say that telling people what's going to happen is the same thing as engaging people in conversation and discussion. And there's 2 particular things that I would like to point to as an example of this to illuminate why this process failed so utterly and why you still have so much anger and resentment and suspicion about what's actually happening. The Marine Park process, as already discussed, was one where if you wanted to be involved, you could be involved. Go to the meetings, you could participate, you could vote. And as was discussed as well, when the decisions were made, the public felt as if they had been heard, not as if they had been told. There was something prior to that. The charter school wanted to expand to a much larger population, and the population in town took issue with that for a bunch of reasons that had to do with taxes and had to do with fairness and had to do with distribution of funds, across all of our students and all of our families and shouldering the burden fairly. The town rose up. The council responded. The council established a Blue Ribbon Commission. The public schools responded. Dr. Rummage held hearings where all of the people showed up and spoke, and he presented his side of the story. And the charter school responded, and they invited everyone down to their place over on Front Street and had us come in and speak to our issues. And in the end, the expansion was denied by people who had nothing to do with the town, because that's really not our role here in this town to decide about that. But the point is, all of the stakeholders felt heard. The biggest problem with what's going on with Senior Center and so many other things in this town that are supported by the majority council is that we are being told what to do. And I understand that there are council representatives who want to be told what to do, who have publicly stated that they do what they are told to do. And that is something that is clearly very empowering to those people and makes them feel comfortable. But as residents of this town and people who elect people into these positions, it makes us very uncomfortable because we don't know who you're listening to and we don't know what you're being told. So in the end, the process for the Senior Center is basically now being presented as some kind of a rewrite of history. But we who are here and have been very active have been paying very close attention, and we know exactly what happened. There's no need for me to go through this chronology again. I would just say that while I understand the intense defensiveness that we're seeing here and the intense need to somehow say that no, everything was done right, it wasn't. And the very fact that we're still talking about this and we're still arguing about it and we're still pointing fingers and trying to offset blame just proves how badly it was handled all around. So I would just like that to be a correction to the record. There was not public input. There was a public telling of what would happen. And you also had to be aware of the fact that the redevelopment agency was in charge of this, and not the council. And it also happened for the most part during the pandemic. And 4 of you voted consistently to keep that thing closed. And it was already on public record that you wanted to sell the building. Everything got changed. That's the power of the people. You have to speak up. You have to be strong. You can smile as much as you want. The people feel powerful because we won on Fix It Now. And we will continue to speak up. But you will not tell us that things happened that didn't happen. And if you want to compliment yourselves on your process, think about why things went down the way they did this past spring. If Fix It Now hadn't happened, a lot of other things wouldn't have happened. So consider that when you move forward and try to get reelected in a town that speaks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Really quick before we go on, Greg, there's a couple of statements there that I find extremely troubling. And I think facts are very important. Was it ever for sale? Or was there ever any paperwork showing that that was for sale?
Talking to me?
Yeah, you're the attorney. Was there ever any paperwork
sorry.
that the Senior Center was for sale?
No, I was not asked to sell the Senior Center. That's what you're asking me.
We never did. And was there ever a vote taken by this council that prolonged the closure of the Senior Center?
You asking me again?
I can say there wasn't.
Greg,
I mean, I'm not at every meeting. Andrew's at the meeting.
you're on the spot.
Okay, no problem. I can say this.
Question to ask me.
I can say
Hey,
I can say this. There's not a single ordinance that was.
Let's talk at the same time.
The attorney on the spot.
The attorney.
I didn't mean to. I just remember the process very well because I invested a lot of myself in it. There was never a vote that prolonged this process. There was never a time on record where anybody voted to keep the Senior Center closed. There was never any paperwork or documents that that land was for sale. And that was never something even considered by this council. So I think facts are extremely important. The people have been heard and listened to. The option that went forward was the most simplistic with modifications to modernize the building so that it would be a sustainable building. And it was to what the people were asking for. Yes, the people were listened to, and that is why we moved forward with this. So there was a process and there was public input that brought it to that point. And the exact people who are calling in tonight were very much a part of that process, and they are getting the closest thing to what they asked for with modern safety and modernization to the building. So I just think that's very important to state. Thanks.
So
I also think it's very important.
I'm sorry. I think we're playing with semantics here because we keep talking about was there an actual vote? Is there paperwork? But the fact is that our former borough administrator gave an interview and said that that Senior Center property was part of a plan for further development. The borough wasn't developing it. That was the plan, along with other borough properties, to have developers develop that property. So, you know, the semantic is no. Did we actually take a vote? Absolutely not. Was it in the back room burner to eventually sell that property? Because here's why that the truth matters. because you don't plan to build an $8 million complex at Count Basie and do what with the senior center property then? We were going to fix that too? No, that was going to be sold to be developed. That's a fact. You don't build $8 million projects in one location to move the senior center. And then what do you do with the current location of the senior center? You sell it to a developer.
And Michael, I think you bring up a good point. And I think in contrast to Kate's dissertation on what transpired and the fact that it didn't come before the council for a vote, and I didn't get to hear Greg's explanation, but it was before the redevelopment agency for consideration. I think you make a good point in the fact that if we were going to build a community center in the Count Basie Field complex, that the senior center property at 80 Shrewsbury Avenue would have then had to be sold. And your comment about the former borough administrator putting it on the record in a real estate publication, a noted real estate publication here in New Jersey, is accurate, because I too did read the article that he was quoted in. So I think in correcting the record and making it as transparent as possible, the folks that have called in and commented tonight are putting things back on the record so that we're not revising what actually transpired over the course of the last year and a half.
Thank you, Ed. And again, I want to remind the council, I appreciate the comments everyone is expressing, but this is our time to listen to the public. Thank you. Next.